What if this one is too much? What if I— But we won't. He interrupted, his tone steady, possessive. I won't allow it. You mean too much to me for that? You know that, right? The weight of his proclamation hung in the air, thick with promise and something deeper, something she had yet to embrace. She turned her gaze away, focusing instead on a window overlooking the bustling street below, where life continued with unchecked fervor. Kymani stepped closer. The scent of his cologne, a mix of cedar and something warm and citrusy, filled her senses, grounding her. Look, he began, his voice dropping to a firmer, more intimate pitch. All that matters is us fighting back together. We're stronger side by side. Trust me. Trust is a fragile thing, Elysia murmured, the honesty of her words shimmering in the quiet between them. She felt the warmth of his proximity enveloping her, a tangible shield against the world's sharpening edges. What if you let me show you just how strong we can be? Kymani stepped deeper into her space, his intensity igniting the air around them like the flames of a fire. I'm willing to fight for us. Elysia's heart raced at his unwavering gaze, held captive by the depth she saw there, fierce loyalty, a quiet desperation beneath the surface. What's the plan, then? She quipped, the humor laced with a hint of challenge, but her pulse betrayed her. His lips curled into a smirk as he leaned closer, poised on the precipice between challenge and something more. We start by reclaiming what's Elysia. We regroup, and then I take you out on a proper date. She laughed softly, the tension momentarily lifted. A date? In the middle of a corporate battle? You do know how to set priorities. Hey, he said, his tone feigning indignation. Battle before brunch is my philosophy. You should notably respect my lunch arrangements. Elysia's laughter melted into something softer, deeper. I could get behind that, she admitted, her heart finally daring to hope. Just then he cupped her face gently, thumb brushing across her cheek as his eyes bore into hers. Elysia, just say yes. The air crackled, their breaths mingling, hearts beating in tandem as he leaned in closer, filling the space with an electric charge. She stood transfixed, teetering on a delicate edge, and then, when his lips met hers in a not-so-innocent brush of warmth, time elongated like melted wax. It was soft and lingering, a promise wrapped in the tantalizing hint of what could blossom from their connection. She responded instinctively, melting against him as the world around them blurred into oblivion. As they parted, breathless and wide-eyed, the lingering taste of his daring kiss ignited her hopes. You know I can't just say yes to a battle date, she breathed, teasing yet enthralled. Nor can I resist a challenge, Kymani replied, his voice low and laced with playful mischief. But all laughter faded into an unbreakable silence, a realization dawning upon them both. Together, they could face anything, battles not just for business, but for the hearts they guarded so fiercely. Scene 64. Next steps. Next steps. The late afternoon sun filled through the expansive windows of Elysia's office, casting a warm golden light across the sleek wooden desk littered with blueprints and contracts. Kymani leaned casually against the corner, arms folded, watching as Elysia meticulously arranged the papers. There was a steady rhythm to her movements, a grace that belied the tension simmering just beneath the surface. You know, you look like you're trying to build a rocket ship, not just put together an expansion plan, Kymani remarked, a playful grin flickering on his lips. He relaxed further into the corner, his tall frame exuding the kind of confidence that made her heart flutter. Elysia shot him a quirked eyebrow, a hint of a smirk pulling at her mouth. Well, if I had a spare $1,000,000, I might just build one. Then we could really escape the chaos. Kymani chuckled, the sound smooth and rich like dark chocolate. Where would we go? Mars? The last thing I need is to end up on a planet full of aliens trying to sell me satellite dishes. Good point, Elysia replied, pushing her dark curls back behind her ear. Not to mention, those alien contracts are notoriously complex. There was a moment of silence, the kind that buzzed with unspoken thoughts, and Elysia's insistent fidgeting momentarily stilled. Instead, her gaze wandered to Kymani, taking in his sharp features framed by the warm light. The world outside faded, leaving just the two of them suspended in this moment. Sighing deeply, Elysia put the last sheet of paper down. Kymani, you know how I'm always pushing forward, right? Like a train that just can't stop. Most trains don't have a choice, he replied softly, stepping forward, his expression turning serious. But you're not alone on this track, not anymore. Elysia's heart skipped. She could feel the vulnerability creeping in. I appreciate that, but I can't help but think that maybe taking a pause, it's something I'm afraid to do. She hesitated, then admitted, "What if it all crumbles before I can catch it?" Kymani approached her slowly, his intensity enveloping her. "What if it doesn't?" His voice dropped an octave, each word landing like a gentle question in the air. "What if you build something stronger, something that lasts?" She met his gaze, the depths of his dark brown eyes striking in earnest. "And what if it's all built on love, trust? You're so afraid of being vulnerable that you're overlooking this." He leaned in slightly, almost conspiratorially. "I know this is new, scary, but imagine the possibilities, Elysia. Together." "Together," she echoed, the word tasting both foreign and intoxicating. The promise hung thick between them, tugging at something deep within her. Kymani's gaze remained locked on her, an invitation wrapped in sincerity. "And what if you let go? Just this once? You think of every possible outcome, but some things can't be calculated." "Like us?" Elysia challenged, her voice barely above a whisper, the debate between her head and her heart intensifying. "Exactly." He looked around the office, then back at her. "You say you want to expand, but what would your vision truly look like? If you weren't holding back, imagine what we could create." Something in his words ignited a latent fire within Elysia, a yearning that had been buried too deep for too long. "And if it fails?" Kymani took a deliberate step closer until they were an arm's length apart. "Even if it does, it'll be a journey worth taking." Her breath hitched slightly, caught in a web of possibility and longing. "You make it sound so simple," she murmured, scanning the space between them, as if it were a map to something unknown. "It is simple," Kymani replied, his voice dropping lower, tenderness pouring like honey from his words. "Love conquers all. You'll allow yourself to fail, but only if you dare to invest in what could be extraordinary." Elysia felt each word wrap around her, the tension of the moment shifting into something palpable, electric. "But you're not just a business partner now, are you?" Elysia asked, leaning closer, eyes searching his with urgency. "You're something more?" Kymani regarded her steadily, the corner of his mouth curling upward again. "It's the only way I know how to be," he answered, his expression softening yet firm. "More than anything, I'm here." And in that moment, grounded in the laughter and the peril, Elysia felt the walls around her heart begin to crackle like old paint, glimmers of light seeping through. Kymani reached out, brushing his fingers along her arm in a way that sent shivers through her. "Let's take these next steps together." That bold statement resonated, echoing within her, hinting at the extraordinary route they might forge, a path they could brave, hand in hand. "Together," Elysia repeated, sensation sparking like kindling between them, illuminating the dim corners of their hearts. Scene 65, from the ashes. The late afternoon sun filtered through the expansive glass walls of Elysia's office, casting elongated shadows that danced across the polished mahogany desk. The air hummed with the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee and the crispness of imported jasmine. Elysia Ndidi, dressed in a tailored navy blazer that accentuated her figure, stood before a sprawling presentation board displaying the triumphant resurgence of her company. Her heart raced, not only from the adrenaline of recent successes, but also from the tumultuous emotions she felt for the man who had become both her ally and her tormentor. Kymani Taragon leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his gaze intense and piercing. His dark eyes flickered with a knowing spark, tempered by the shadows that often lingered beneath their surface. "You know, it's a crime to let all this brilliance go uncelebrated," he said, a teasing lilt to his voice that belied the weight of his own hidden burdens. "Maybe when I have time to breathe, we can discuss throwing another lavish party." Elysia turned, her tone sharply teasing, but her lips curled into a smile, betraying her ability to bask somewhat in his presence. Yet, beneath her bravado, tension knotted in her gut as her thoughts turned to the precarious balance of their relationship. "Right now, it's about consolidating connections, Kymani, making sure everyone knows we're back." Kymani stepped closer, his protective energy emanating like a warm shadow. "Elysia, do you really think that pushing yourself to the brink is the answer? This isn't just a job, it's your passion, and you've got people who believe in you." Elysia shifted her weight, her jaw clenching. You're doing that thing again, where you want to guard me like a prized possession. I can handle the pressure. Can you? Kymani's voice dipped, his sincerity cutting through her bravado. He moved closer still, their eyes locking. I've seen what pressure does to a person, and believe me, it's not pretty. Her breath caught, the truth of his words lingering in the air like an unspoken threat. She remembered the sleepless nights, the whispers of doubt creeping in. What I've seen is you trying to save everyone but yourself, she shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. Touché. His lips twisted in a wry smile, though his eyes darkened slightly. And maybe you could give me a chance to save you instead. Save me? Elysia burst into a hollow laugh. You sound like my ex. You've saved me from falling straight into the abyss once, yes. But we're in the clear now, right? She avoided his gaze, focusing intently on the board behind her. Something flickered, hurt perhaps, across Kymani's expression. You should know that I didn't step in to save you just because I like the way you run your company or your hair when it catches the light just right. He brushed his fingers through his own unruly waves, his dark skin glowing in the warm light. She tossed her head back, eyes narrowing playfully. You're not getting all poetic on me now, are you? Please, poetry is overrated. His voice dipped lower, a teasing smirk returning as he leaned closer, their bickering igniting the air between them. But you, Elysia Ndidi, with your relentless drive and that spark in your eye, are anything but overrated. You're a fighter, and saving someone like you is no easy task. Elysia felt electricity crackle as he stepped close enough to invade her personal space. And what makes you think I need saving? She challenged, though her heart raced with an inkling that maybe, just maybe, she did. The fact that you just had a full-on panic attack during the last shareholder meeting, he replied, a clever glint in his eye. You can't pretend that wasn't just a little bit of a disaster. Oh, come on. You were the one throwing around passive-aggressive compliments about my PowerPoint skills, she retorted, unable to hold back a smile. Kymani chuckled lightly, the sound deep and warm. Well, someone had to distract from the fact that your charts looked like they were designed by a toddler. Excuse me, Elysia exclaimed, her laughter bubbling over. Those charts were a work of art. Art, Kymani. You are clearly an uncultured barbarian. As the comedic repartee hung in the air, the tension shifted, softening like the retreating shadows below them. Kymani took her wrists gently, his grip firm yet tender, grounding her. But in all seriousness, he said, his voice lowering, you're not just an artist in business. You're an artist in life, and I want to be more than just your shoulder to lean on or the guy in the corner with the charming remarks. I want to be the one you can rely on. Elysia felt her guard wavering. And how do you plan to do that? By swooping in with clever quips? Something like that, Kymani replied, his lips curling in a genuine smile. But seriously, if you stay at this pace, I'm going to have to intervene. I won't lose you to stress or... But I'm not stress, Elysia interrupted, shifting closer. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of mischief and something deeper, a yearning she struggled to acknowledge even as it pulsed between them. And you know it. Maybe you just need to admit that you're not invincible, Kymani urged, leaning in closer, absorbing the warmth of her presence. And maybe what you really want is to share the load. The world around them faded, the laughter echoing into nothingness as they stood suspended in their own moment, realization dawning like the softest light upon the ashes of what had been their tumultuous journey together, igniting a spark that promised warmth and connection beyond their chaotic entanglement. Okay then, Elysia whispered, their lips nearly brushing. Maybe I can consider sharing the load with someone who has a habit of saving people. Kymani grinned, triumph flickering in his gaze. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Scene 66, a road ahead. A mist hung outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room, a gray shroud that softened the edges of the bustling city below. Elysia Ndidi tapped her fingers lightly on the smooth, dark wood table, her gaze locked on the scatter of documents in front of her. The air was thick, charged with the anticipation of the day's negotiations, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee lingered like a warm embrace, albeit a fraught one. Kymani Taragon leaned back in his chair, his eyes as deep as midnight's quiet alleys, insightful and assessing. Does dead in the water sound like a good business strategy? He quipped, his voice a rich baritone that cloaked the tension threatening to crack the room wide open. Elysia glanced at him from beneath her lashes, her heart doing an involuntary little dance. Not unless you have a flotation device, she fired back. A flicker of a smile attempted, though doubt laced her voice. She had put everything into this merger, every sleepless night, every ounce of driven ambition. But she felt the nagging grip of insecurity clawing at her as she met his gaze. But you know what you're doing, right? Kymani smirked, but the flicker in his eyes betrayed a solemnity that caught her off guard. Only when you stop making me feel like we're tipsy trapeze artists. The door swung open suddenly, flooding the room with the scent of rain-soaked pavement and more stress than Elysia was prepared to manage. In strode Francesca, their lead negotiator, her heels clicking against the floor with precision. All hands on deck, people! They're pulling out their big guns. Kymani leaned forward, folding his arms across the table, the muscles in his forearms tensing. What kind of guns? Francesca's expression darkened. Not metaphorical. They're coming hard with some counteroffers we need to address before they blindside us. To be fair, Elysia interjected, her voice rising with an unexpected edge. They can't take what we've built. I know our proposal inside and out. We have something they want us. The tension multiplied, thickening the air like the storm brewing outside. Francesca raised an eyebrow. Right, but we need to suit up. Confidence isn't armor. My confidence has never been the issue, Elysia shot back, the heat of frustration creeping up her neck. Kymani held her gaze, watching carefully, sensing the tide change. Maybe it is, he said, his tone light yet firm. But also, less chaos. Focused strategy. We can't wade through the quicksand of emotions. Let's make this a serene journey instead. Before she could respond, Francesca threw her hands up. Serenity has left the building. We need a strategy, not a pep talk. Counterpoint, Kymani said, a twinkle returning to his gaze. My idea of a peaceful journey involves parachutes, not pushy corporate greed. Also, maybe ice cream. Elysia couldn't help her laughter, but a shadow passed over her. You make light, but the stakes are high. High stakes need high ground, never play from the bottom. As they launched into a heated exchange over target markets, Elysia caught herself glancing at her partner, wondering how he was so adept at binding chaos and laughter, even as the atmosphere crackled with anxiety. Francesca frowned, directing an irritated stare between them. Can we focus on surviving this? Yes, Kymani agreed, but Elysia noted the way he turned slightly to her, a silent inquiry dancing amid his bold demeanor. But can someone explain where this internal sabotage came from? Elysia hesitated, her pulse racing. It's complicated, more complicated than our casual banter suggests, she said, the words tumbling out quickly. Kymani's features softened, concern nudging towards vulnerability. Elysia, what did you think would happen just because you make sure everyone gets to the finish line? Right now, I finish because this is my life on the line. She shot back defensively. In an instant, tension crackled between them, diverging from business to something far more personal. Kymani's voice lowered, gentler, unearthing an emotion seated deep within her. You don't have to perfect all the answers overnight. Elysia felt the warm flush of their nearing intimacy, porcelain crackling against porcelain. And yet, here I am, balancing on this knife edge. His expression registered understanding, and in this moment, the air shifted. The fight had unveiled something deeper, an undercurrent that couldn't be ignored. Kymani leaned closer, the scent of cedar and something dangerously alluring enveloping her senses, and near her ear, he whispered, Then let's start a new chapter, together. Outside, the first drops of rain fell, the sound washing over them like a cleansing tide, a prelude to the tumultuous journey ahead, their laughter echoing faintly against the storm. Scene 67. The sweetest surrender. The air in Kymani's expansive office hummed with a tension that felt almost electric. Elysia stood at the window, her back to him, framed by the golden light filtering in from the setting sun. The distant skyline cast a fiery glow upon her, and the faint aroma of her floral perfume mingled with the ever-present scent of polished mahogany that filled the room. Kymani leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, watching her with a mix of longing and frustration. Why do you insist on turning every conversation into a debate? He finally asked, breaking the silence that teetered on the edge of confrontation. Elysia turned slowly, her brow furrowed in defiance. Because someone has to challenge you, Kymani. I won't just stand there and accept your decisions without questioning them. Is that really what this is about? Kymani replied, his voice low, a rich timbre that seemed to vibrate through the space between them. Or is it your way of pushing me away? She opened her mouth but hesitated, the air thickening like molasses. You wouldn't understand, Elysia murmured, her intensity faltering. She stared at a framed photograph on Kymani's desk, a moment frozen in time of him and his younger sister, both wearing wide smiles. Try me, he challenged softly, his dark eyes locking onto hers, inviting her to unearth the tangled emotions swirling beneath her bravado. The silence deepened, an unspoken conflict echoing in the room, punctuated by the ticking of the clock on the wall, a relentless reminder of time slipping away. Elysia's resolve wavered as she glanced outside, the city below bathed in the warm hues of twilight. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when you're hiding so much, she finally admitted, her voice a mere whisper. Kymani pushed off the doorframe, moving closer, their faces inches apart. And what is it I'm hiding, Elysia? That I care about you? That I'm trying to help save your company? Or that I won't let anyone harm you, including someone who may or may not be in my past? Your past. She stepped back, a flash of fear mingled with anger lighting up her eyes. Is that what this is to you? A distraction? Just a way to keep the ghosts at bay? He took a breath, running a hand through his tousled hair. No, it's more than that. I'm not just a protector, Elysia. I'm a man who feels things deeply, even among darkness. As the words hung in the air, a brief flicker of understanding passed between them, igniting a familiar flame. Elysia could see it now. Beneath his cool exterior lay a tempest, a swirl of emotions that threatened to break free. It was the vulnerability she had chased for so long, now scratching at her heart. And yet this darkness you speak of is what drives you to keep secrets, she shot back, yet her tone softened, curiosity peeking through her defensiveness. What are you afraid will happen if you let me in? Kymani's gaze dropped, and he took a step closer, the heat of his presence undeniable. Afraid? I'm terrified that you'll see me for what I truly am, a man who can't reconcile his past with the future I want to build, if I'm allowed to. What sort of future? The kind where I have someone like you beside me, he replied, his voice now just above a whisper. The confession hung heavily, warming the space between them. Elysia's heart raced. But I'm not sure I'm worthy. Before she could finish, Kymani reached out, lightly grasping her wrist, grounding her. You are worthy, Elysia, in ways you don't even see. You're more than just your past. The sudden intimacy of his touch sent an electric shock through her system, igniting the longing within. Their faces slowly drew closer, the silences carrying weight, a rhythm that matched the heartbeat in her ears. So, what now? Elysia asked, breathless, caught in the gravity of his presence. Kymani's dark eyes searched hers before he answered. We trust each other. We feel. We delve into the mess together, no secrets, holding nothing back. The world outside seemed distant as she whispered, Together. Yes, he said, his thumb brushing gently over her skin, igniting a warmth that spread like fire. Always together. Elysia felt the wall between them crumble, the sweet surrender of shared vulnerability lighting the way to something irrevocably beautiful, their secret world blossoming beneath the velvet ashes of their pasts. Scene 68, finally free. The rain drummed a steady rhythm on the window panes of Elysia's office, each drop laced with the weight of freshly cleared tensions. The deep scent of damp earth and ozone enveloped the air, mingling with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Elysia sat at her desk, staring intently at the open laptop before her, half stacked with files and the promise of new beginnings. But her attention was drawn elsewhere, to a stack of takeout containers and a hastily scribbled note at its side. It read, Can't be free without a little chaos, and was signed in a flourish, Kymani. Biting back a smile, she glanced at the clock. It was well past lunchtime. The mundane task of sorting through business proposals felt heavier than before. Just as her mind began to wander, the door swung open, revealing Kymani, all warm light and charm, water glistening on his deep mahogany skin, drenched from the rain. Did someone order a knight in soggy armor? He teased. shaking droplets from his dark curls. More like a drenched fool, Elysia shot back, her eyes sparkling with mischief. And what do you think you're going to do with that? Change the world with soggy takeout? With an exaggerated flourish, he set down the containers, each a kaleidoscope of colors and aromas, before taking a seat on the edge of her desk. Only if they pay me also. This is gourmet. No soggy chips here. Besides, considering the chaos you've been through, I thought a little culinary experiment could reignite your spark. The rain continued its percussion as Elysia tried to focus on the food, but tension gnawed in her stomach. Kymani, let's not pretend all of this is behind us. I just got out of an unwanted partnership, and all the lingering stress hasn't exactly left me giddy. Can't we have a normal lunch? Normal? Where's the fun in that? Kymani smirked, his voice teasing, but his gaze was serious as he leaned closer. How about we celebrate your freedom instead? Let's sketch out a plan for your new venture. Or are you too busy sighing over your future? Elysia rolled her eyes, acutely aware of the electric space between them. And what plan do you reckon would involve you not undercutting my entire existence? Underhanded and cutthroat? I would never, he replied, holding his hands up in mock surrender before softening his tone. Look, I want to help you. You know that. The past few weeks have shown how strong you are, and I think celebrating that should be a priority as well. A small laugh escaped Elysia, nor cutting through the haze of their earlier discussions. You have a funny way of celebrating. Could you imagine if I threw a party? I'd have the board hunting down every flaw before the first bite. Oh, Elysia's cheese platter? Too edgy. Exactly, Kymani said, leaning back with a laugh. It's a travesty. Cheese should never be edgy, just classy like us. Their laughter danced through the air, a counterpoint to the rain's steady insistence, but Elysia felt a tightness in her chest. As the conversation paused, a shadow fell over Kymani's face, his earlier levity drifting ominously. Listen, I know this sounds all sunshine and rainbows after the storm, but there's something I've been wanting to share. Elysia sensed a shift, her pulse quickening. What is it? Lately, I've been thinking about the future, our future, and when all the fog clears. What about the fog? Are we back in the mystery novel territory? She tried to maintain the playful banter, but her heart raced with anticipation of what he might say. The fog clears, and I'm still standing here, Kymani stated firmly. Standing for you, next to you, through whatever comes next. Elysia held his gaze, feeling the intensity radiate from him. The revelation hung in the air, fragile yet potent, their laughter fading into silence. Kymani, do you mean? Yeah, he interrupted, swiping a hand through his hair. Don't overthink it. Just realize that I will always have your back, and you are free to go after what you want. What if I want you? She challenged gently, her voice barely above a whisper. His eyes darkened like storm clouds gathering. Then it's going to be one wild ride, Elysia. They locked eyes, the tension shifting, sparking with heat nearly palpable in the stagnant air of the room. Elysia could hear the rain fall louder, a heartbeat echoing their growing intimacy. Then, let's make it wild, she replied, her pulse calm, finally free from the chaos that used to bind them. Scene 69, Moments of Clarity. The golden hues of the sunset slipped through the broad windows of Elysia's office, reflecting off the polished mahogany desk that was strewn with celebratory champagne bottles and the remnants of an impromptu victory party. Elysia leaned back in her chair, a bemused smile playing at the corners of her lips as she glanced at Kymani. Do you think everyone else in the office will go back to work with confetti in their hair, or will they just blame it on the dog? She asked, raising an eyebrow in playful challenge. Kymani chuckled, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed expertly, a throaty laugh rolling from his chest. Let's hope they blame it on the dog. I'd hate for people to think we're not seriously capable around here. He lifted a champagne flute, its bubbly contents catching the light as he gave her a teasing salute. To dog-themed celebrations, Elysia laughed, warmth blossoming in her chest. But as her laughter faded, the weight of the day fell over her like a heavy quilt. What if this victory is just a fluke? She murmured, her fingers instinctively brushing the rim of her glass as if it held the answers she sought. Kymani's smile dimmed slightly, the spark in his hazel eyes giving way to a deeper understanding. Elysia, he began slowly, You've worked too hard for it to be a fluke. You deserve every bit of this success. He pushed himself off the doorframe, stepping into the light. But only if you can recognize it when it happens. Easier said than done, Elysia replied softly, her voice a mere whisper. You don't know the pressure, the always looming fear of failing. He moved closer, the scent of sandalwood and fresh linen swirling around her like an embrace. It's okay to feel that way, but now is a moment to savor, he said, tilting his head slightly as he scrutinized her, drawing her attention to the sincere warmth behind his words. Elysia felt a flutter in her stomach, a feeling both daunting and exhilarating. The air between them thickened as Kymani stepped into her personal space, their energies pulsing together like currents of electricity. But what do I do with it? She asked, her voice quavering. What if tomorrow everything just falls apart, just like before? Kymani reached out, placing his hand over hers, his thumb tracing gentle circles along her knuckles. Today isn't tomorrow, and tomorrow doesn't define your worth, he said, his voice a low rumble that resonated within her. And you don't have to carry all this alone. She searched his eyes, seeking refuge in the depths of his unwavering gaze, each glimmer revealing a myriad of shared struggles she couldn't put into words. I've spent so long fearing the next potential disaster. A breath hung between them, thick with unspoken confessions and emotions long buried. Life's full of risks, Elysia. But, his voice dipped low, bringing with it a soothing intensity. You need to open yourself up to joy, even when it feels uncomfortable or frightening. Her heart raced as his thumb brushed against her skin. And what if it doesn't last? What if I let myself feel too deeply, and it all crumbles again? Then at least you lived. You felt it for however long it lasted, he countered, his brow furrowing slightly as a flicker of vulnerability crossed his face, lending unexpected weight to his words. You'll never truly know until you try. We're not talking about a corporate merger here, Kymani. This is deeper, she said, her breath hitching as she found the courage to hold his gaze. There was an undeniable chemistry between them, a magnetic force that had pulled her closer from the very beginning, and she could no longer ignore it. I'm not scared of deep, he said with a smirk, his eyes brightening mischievously. But maybe the dog's approval of our merger should be considered too. Elysia stifled a laugh, shaking her head, the tension easing ever so slightly. You think that will help? Kymani's grip tightened around her hand, as if he was anchoring her in place. I know it will, because ultimately, the dance between fear and joy, that's what makes it all worthwhile, right? And besides, his voice dropped and he leaned closer still, his breath warm against her cheek. I intend to make sure you know joy starting now. The space between them closed ever further, the world outside seeming to fade. Elysia's heart swelled as they stood on the precipice of something exhilarating, an electric tension coiling around them like rising smoke. This might be the most serious merger I've ever considered, she whispered, a teasing glint returning to her eyes. Kymani grinned, the warmth of their connection palpable. Absolutely. Just remember to invite the dog. As laughter bubbled between them, a new sense of clarity unfurled in the shadows, a promise of potential happiness that lingered, waiting to be embraced. Scene 70. Beneath the surface, on a humid summer evening, the soft murmur of cicadas filled the air as Elysia Ndidi stepped onto the wrought iron balcony of Kymani Taragon's penthouse. The city sprawled below her, a tapestry of twinkling lights and honking cars, but her gaze was fixed on Kymani, who stood at the edge, his silhouette outlined against the gathering twilight. His broad shoulders seemed to carry the weight of the world, and the way he clenched his jaw had her heart tightening. What happened to you, Kymani? Elysia asked, leaning against the railing, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. He turned to her slowly, amber eyes flickering with stormy clouds of past regrets. You think I'm just an open book, huh? We've barely scratched the surface. Elysia stepped closer, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. I know you've been through something. It's in the way you hold yourself, defensive, like a fortress. But I want to understand. I want to help. Kymani's gaze softened for a moment. Then it hardened again, the flicker of vulnerability dousing like a sudden rain. He turned away, his thoughts seemingly pulling him far from the moment. There's nothing to help with, Elysia. That's just baggage. We all have it, don't we? She took a breath, feeling the tension in the air vibrate with unspoken tension. Baggage is only heavy if you carry it alone. I want to share the weight. You don't have to hide behind clever quips and charming smiles. Kymani snorted lightly, a half smile breaking through, but it didn't reach his eyes. Clever quips are my specialty, you know. He gestured to himself playfully, adopting a mockingly suave posture. Kymani Taragon, king of wit, ruler of sarcasm. Elysia couldn't help but laugh, breaking through his tough exterior. You might need a new title. She stepped closer, feeling the warmth radiating off him, her breath hitching slightly as she caught the smell of his cologne, notes of sandalwood, and something altogether uniquely him. I think I'll stick with that one, he replied, the flicker of humor causing her insides to flutter. Yet her gaze fell upon the small scar running along his brow, the reminder of a life lived in the shadows. You aren't giving me much material to work with. He sighed, the facade of laughter fading. You really want to know? Okay, let's see. His hands found the balcony's railing, gripping it tightly as he stared out into the abyss of the night. My childhood was complicated. Growing up, I had to be the man of the house. My father, he wasn't there. My mother worked multiple jobs. I learned to fight for everything, and I've had to live with what I lost. Elysia felt her own walls begin to fade. What did you lose? He finally turned to face her fully, and for a moment the distance between them seemed to shrink. My innocence, my family, trust, and maybe hope. His voice was low, almost a whisper. She stepped nearer, the intimate space between them electric now, the world below them fading into a mere backdrop. You haven't lost hope, not entirely. You're here, Kymani. You're still fighting. Maybe it's the fighting that's killing me, he muttered, glancing toward the horizon. Elysia reached out, brushing her fingers against his forearm, and his muscles flinched at her touch. You don't have to fight alone. His gaze lingered on her, the storm in his eyes battling with something searching for peace. And if this familiarity comes with strings, what if? You take my hand and find out? She interrupted, her heart racing as she stepped even closer. His eyes searched hers, and she could feel the pulse of anticipation thrumming in the air. You're tempting fate, Elysia. His voice dropped, thick with something unspoken, the air charged with a heady mix of tension and possibility. And you? She held his gaze, her breath almost caught. Are you brave enough to let me in? A moment stretched between them, as thick as velvet night, before he stepped closer still. I've never been good at asking for help, but maybe you can change that. Elysia's breath hitched, the world outside fading entirely. I'll hold your hand through the darkness if you promise to do the same. Kymani leaned in, the distance almost non-existent now, an uncharted territory opening between them. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. His voice was a low rumble, wrapping around her like his arms might, as they stood poised at the edge of something profound. Bring it on, she replied, a teasing smile breaking across her face, and just like that, the weight of past shadows began to lift, leaving behind the promise of something bright and new. Scene 71. Flames of Desire. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden rays that danced off the lake's surface like scattered diamonds. Surrounding them, the scent of pine mingled with the sweet fragrance of wildflowers, filling the air with a sense of tranquility that felt almost unreal. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the towering trees, whispering secrets as it swept through the secluded cabin Elysia Ndidi had chosen for their weekend getaway. Elysia sat on the porch, her gaze fixed on the shimmering water. Clad in a lightweight sundress that accentuated her curves without being ostentatious, she brushed a loose curl behind her ear, a nervous habit that hadn't quelled since she met Kymani Taragon. He appeared, stepping into the soft light, looking effortlessly handsome in a fitted shirt that hinted at the strength beneath. But there was something deeper in his eyes, a flicker of uncertainty hidden behind his confident veneer. Mind if I join you? Kymani asked, his voice a smooth rumble that sent a delightful shiver down her spine. Of course not, Elysia replied, her heart fluttering as he settled beside her. The warmth radiating from his body seemed to melt the chill of her worries away, at least briefly. Quite the view, isn't it? Kymani commented, his gaze drifting over the lake, though she sensed he wasn't entirely focused on the landscape. It is, she agreed, leaning back slightly, allowing herself to relax. Almost too perfect. That comment hung in the air, a mirror to both their lives, beautiful on the surface, yet troubled beneath. Kymani's laughter broke the tension, lightening the mood. Let's hope the mosquitoes don't ruin our serenity. Nothing says romantic getaway like a swollen bite on the backside. She chuckled, picturing the absurdity of it. Right? It would definitely make for a memorable story. Maybe I'll write a memoir, The Day I Battled Nature for Love. Kymani grinned, the playful banter softening the edges of his usual guardedness. Elysia turned to him, intrigued. You'd need a publishing deal for that, Mr. Taragon. True. The last time I asked for a publisher, I nearly went into hiding. He shrugged, the warmth in his eyes fading for a fleeting moment. Something tells me you're used to people being scared of you, she said, testing the waters, her curiosity overpowering her caution. But who would be scared of a nature book? Perhaps the competition? Kymani raised an eyebrow, the hint of mischief returning. I can already see the tagline, learn the secrets of the wild unless you want to end up 6 feet under. Laughter erupted from Elysia, and in that moment, Kymani's more serious air crumbled a bit more. You'd enjoy our little bookstore in town, you know. Oh, he said, his interest piquing, but she could see he was searching for something deeper in the invitation. And what makes this bookstore so special? It's cozy and crammed with character, she explained animatedly, leaning closer as she spoke. The smell of old paper and coffee envelopes you the moment you enter. It transports you to another world. Plus, they serve the best mocha lattes, a risky delicacy I might be willing to share if you're lucky. Kymani chuckled softly, and Elysia relished the sound, her heart warming at the contrast of their playful exchanges. But just then, something shifted between them, a heaviness that gave rise to vulnerability. Elysia could almost feel his emotional walls tightening again, and she sought to breach that sudden chill. Is it so hard to imagine a moment where it's just us? She asked, her voice softer, reaching out. No plans, no past, just two people enjoying life? Kymani turned to her, his expression shifting into something raw. You might not want that with someone like me. His voice dropped, reverberating with the weight of unsaid truths. What do you mean? Elysia pressed, leaning in closer. The flickering light from the porch illuminated the conflict swirling in his dark eyes. Kymani paused, his breath hitching in the shared silence. You don't know the darkness I carry. Elysia felt a pang in her chest. Then let me in. Let me see you, Kymani. You don't always have to wear a mask, she urged, an undeniable yearning etched in her words. His gaze softened, revealing the turbulent emotions beneath. Maybe I need someone brave enough to strong-arm it off. The connection ignited between them, and Elysia sensed the magnetic pull of their allure, an inevitable dance on the edge of passion. So what now? Do we let the sunset witness us trying? She asked, teasingly yet challengingly. Kymani's smile widened, his demeanor transforming as he leaned closer, the vibrant colors of dusk painting them in hues of desire and hope. You make it very hard to resist that challenge, Elysia. With a tender glance, they both knew the night was just beginning, the embers of intimacy lighting the way into the depths of their desires. Scene 72, facing forward. The faint whir of coffee beans grinding filled the air of Elysia's sleek kitchen, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in the depths of her heart. She flicked a glance at Kymani, who stood by the counter, his fingers brushing over the polished wood as if seeking solace from its tactile warmth. The smell of rich coffee enveloped them, yet the mood felt heavier than the aromatic brew. Each subtle twitch of his jaw mirrored her rising anxiety, as if they were both on the precipice of something profound, something they both feared. Elysia turned her attention to the steaming kettle, pouring water over the ground coffee with precision. Do you want yours black or sweet? She kept her tone light, trying to mask the tremor of trepidation threatening to spill out. Her heart beat in time with the soft bubbling of the kettle, a rhythmic reminder of their shared instability. Your choice, Kymani replied, his gaze steady on her, though his expression remained scrupulously neutral. She caught a flicker of something deeper lingering behind his eyes, an unspoken understanding that sent shivers up her spine. She busied herself with cups, sliding them onto the counter. Each click of ceramic against wood seemed like a countdown to an inevitable conversation. Maybe we should talk about what comes next, she said tentatively. Next. Kymani echoed, his voice heavy with contemplation. He pushed his dark curls back, revealing the sharp line of his brow. Is that what you want? Elysia felt heat creep to her cheeks, the implication hanging thick in the air. Stability, I mean, she stammered, searching for courage amidst the swirling uncertainty. After everything, don't you think we deserve to find stability? He cut her off, and the weight of his tone sent a shiver of alarm racing down her spine. Is that what this is about? Uncertainty poured into the room like the freshly brewed coffee, stirring her insides. What do you mean? The kind of stability that comes with commitment, Elysia, the kind that changes everything. He stepped closer, every inch his presence commanding. His dark eyes bore into hers, demanding an answer to a question she wasn't sure she could articulate. I don't know, maybe. She reached for her cup, fingers trembling as she lifted it. But after what we've been through, I can't imagine. He leaned in, a breath away, the tension taut like a drawn bowstring. Maybe what we've been through is precisely why we should consider it. The seriousness in his voice conflicted with the heated flicker in his gaze, creating a push and pull they both could feel. Elysia swallowed hard, his warmth wrapping around her like a gentle embrace. She paused, the mug trembling in her hand as she searched his eyes. But Kymani, what if? What if? He interrupted, softening for a moment, his intensity giving way to something more vulnerable. What if facing our fears together is the only way forward? Their eyes locked, and the kitchen faded into the background. The only world that mattered was the space between them, charged with the unending possibilities of what forward could mean. Elysia felt her heart racing, the vulnerability of the moment flooding her with an intoxicating thrill. I want to, she whispered, the confession slipping past her lips before she could second-guess it. His breath hitched, and for a heartbeat, the world held its breath too. Kymani's expression melted from stoicism to something softer, the hint of a smile dancing at the corners of his mouth. Then let's not just say it, let's show it. Suddenly he reached for her, his hand moving in a slow arc to cup her cheek, thumb grazing her skin with an electric precision that ignited her senses. The warmth of his palm was grounding, a tether in the chaos swirling around them. She felt the air shift, an undeniable pull that blurred the lines between promise and passion. Here's to us, no turning back, he murmured, inches from her lips, the sweetness of coffee lingering in the air. With the world falling away, Elysia leaned into him, her heart pounding as the space between them vanished. As their lips met, soft yet urgent, it ignited an exhilarating connection, wild and free, too tempestuous to consider the consequences. They melted into each other, forging a bond that promised to withstand any storm that lay ahead. As they parted, breathless and lingering, Kymani remained close, his forehead pressed against hers. Are you ready for everything that comes with it? She gazed into his eyes, the bravado of her own fear wavering against the truth of his desire. I am. Let's face it together. Scene 73. The Weight of Hearts. Elysia stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, her brow furrowing as she watched the city pulse beneath a hazy dusk. The distant hum of traffic felt almost like a heartbeat, a reminder of the life beating outside the steel and glass sanctuary she'd built. The weight of her corporate expectations felt heavy on her shoulders, a shroud of uncertainty. What if I just walk away? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, yet laden with desperation. Kymani leaned against the plush leather couch, arms crossed, his gaze fixated on her. He could see the tempest swirling within her, a mixture of ambition, fear, and an unyielding desire for happiness. You'd be leaving behind everything you've worked for, he replied evenly, though his dark eyes softened when they met her hesitance. Wouldn't that feel like giving up? Elysia turned, frustration bubbling beneath her skin, her hands fidgeting with the delicate chain around her neck. Is it giving up if I want to live? I feel suffocated, Kymani. She bit her lip, glancing at the skyline that glittered like a field of stars, trying to find a constellation that would explain her heart. This corporate world, it isn't me anymore. Kymani felt the tug at his chest, an instinctive urge to bridge the gap that had formed not just in the room but within her as well. He straightened, uncrossing his arms. You built this, Elysia. It didn't build you. His voice was warm, encouraging, like the flickering glow of a candle casting shadows, illuminating her struggle. But at what cost? she shot back, tension sparking between them. All these late nights, the ruthless negotiations, sometimes I wonder if I'm just a hollow version of myself, chasing profits instead of joy. The weight of her words hung heavy between them, and Kymani felt the flicker of a deeper understanding take root. Maybe it's time to redefine success, he suggested, stepping closer, his presence commanding, yet comforting. What if I told you that genuine happiness can coexist with ambition? Elysia searched his face, memorizing the angles of his features, strong, unyielding, yet touched by a kindness that warmed her soul. You make it sound so simple. A smirk danced at the corners of her mouth, despite the turmoil within. Like I can just flip a switch. He chuckled lightly, the sound genuine and full of warmth.